charity come and speak. So last November it was Olivia with the Her Shelter. I wonder why she was first. Only because I'm the president of the board, maybe? So also you can start out by telling us your restaurant, and then this is a tap board, so.
Yeah.
You just tapped it.
Of course I did, I was trying to.
So I am Austin Gregory. I'm Director of Development in the Hampton Roads Region for Special Olympics Virginia. My favorite restaurant, I think last time I said the Porch. This time I'll go with Mr. Shawarma. If you guys haven't been there, it's awesome. Down off 21st Street in Norfolk. Go ahead and turn this on. Test. Nice. So I appreciate you guys being here, letting me share a little bit more about Special Olympics with you all. So I'm just going to give a little bit of background on Special Olympics Virginia, and then I'm going to talk a lot about our programs and things like that, but I do have a couple of videos just to kind of like break up me talking. But why do we exist? So for me, my uncle, he has an intellectual disability, 60 years old, lives with my grandparents still. So for me, when I started working with Special Olympics, everything just kind of fell into place, and I love my job. It doesn't feel like a job at all, but we exist to enrich the lives of people with intellectual disabilities, inspire hope within their families, and to encourage inclusion in their communities. So similar to Eggleston in a way, which I love all the work you guys do. So before I show this video, I'd like to just give a little bit of history on Special Olympics, how it was started. So 1958, it was started by Eunice Kennedy Shriver, Kennedy being a word or a last name in there, if that's very familiar. So that's John F. Kennedy's sister, Eunice. They had a young sister named Rosemary, and she had an intellectual disability, undiagnosed at the time, but they found that she was being excluded from a lot of physical activities. The Kennedy family was a very active family. They felt like it was wrong that there wasn't things for her to be doing. So they created Camp Shriver in their backyard in 1958, and 60 years later, Special Olympics is in every single state, 200 countries, serve millions of people worldwide across the globe. There are only 3 organizations that can use Olympics in their name. We're one of them. So you have Special Olympics, and then we serve people with intellectual disabilities, not to be confused with the Paralympics that serves those with physical disabilities. So, and then obviously you have the Olympics that are in Beijing and the Winter Olympics and things like that. So really, we made this video a couple weeks ago, and I was excited to show it to you guys. It's only a couple minutes long, but it's about Wallace and Wilson Chua. Wilson is a parent of Wallace. And it's interesting in the Asian community and other communities, African communities, people with intellectual disabilities can still be very ostracized. There's a misnomer, especially in African communities, that people with intellectual disabilities have some type of correlation with the devil or something like that. So there's still a lot of education that needs to be done across the world. Wilson, I'll let the video speak for itself, but it's very interesting, him talking about coming from an Oriental Asian perspective, how having a son with intellectual disabilities has changed his life. I have to turn it up a little bit, so everyone can turn it up.
He was diagnosed before,
Until we get done. Yeah, it's a little first, yeah.
Wallace is 26 years old. He was diagnosed with autism and
You guys hear?
disability when he was 3 years old. For the first 2 years when he's diagnosed, we shy away from our friends or my co-workers that hoping that Wallace will recover. No one even knows about that. I found out that it's just like autism or it's a lifelong. I'm very proud of what he had achieved, right? What he can do, and it might take 5x or 10x of time, but if we are patient, then they can achieve a lot. I felt that it is important for not only for me to just help in Wallace. I want to help well. That's why we slowly roll into Special Olympics to work with other people as well. To me, Special Olympics is just not receiving. I feel that it is important by giving back to the community as well. That is what I spend, I would say, the majority of my time volunteer as a parent, as a coach, and as a council members. As an Asian background, that I know that a lot of some of the family, they are ashamed of their child disability. They are isolated, and it's just like I want me and Waters to serve as an example for other parents out there that Special Olympics is all about inclusion. That we want to include as many people as possible.
Yeah, just a quick little video. I personally found that really interesting. You know, a parent that has a child with an intellectual disability, and even himself, you know, he wasn't educated about what that means exactly. He said, in the video, if you couldn't hear, he said that he thought it would go away, his autism. And as you know, people with intellectual disabilities in their life, it doesn't go away. But it doesn't have to be a disability at all. And Wallace is just such a good inspiration. You'll see, or Wilson, excuse me. Wilson and Wallace are they're at all of our events. They live in Loudoun County and just like a really cool father-son duo. But yeah, so our vision is an inclusive world for all, created by the power of sport. So as you can see, this is roller skating. We just wrapped up our second largest statewide competition event, Fall Championships. It was at Virginia Beach Sports Center. The Sportsplex, we did golf at First Tee and Virginia Beach National. It was just an incredible event. We had 1,150 athletes participating in 7 different sports. We had 800 volunteers to make it all happen. So, you know, like nonprofits like the Her Shelter, I'm sure, and like Eggleston, you know, the volunteers are the engine of what we do. We couldn't do all of our programming without our volunteers. So this is just some numbers, our statewide reach. I'm not going to go too in-depth into this, but I think it is important to kind of lay the foundation and let you all know how big the population we serve is in Virginia. So I work for Special Olympics Virginia. Each state has their own. In Virginia, we serve nearly 20,000 athletes. This number has actually gone down since before or during the pandemic. So our reach is pretty incredible. 20,000 athletes. We have 35 full-time employees in the state of Virginia, and then you know, thousands and thousands of volunteers that make all this happen. One thing we're really proud of is our Unified Champion School Initiative. So right now we're in nearly 400 schools across the state of Virginia, which is pretty awesome. And then the schools, a lot of people ask, how do we find our athletes? A lot of times it is within the schools, like that is our pipeline. But one of the beautiful things about Special Olympics is that you never age out of it. So I played golf with one of our golfers, David Sutton. He's 57 years old, and he's still involved. Our top golfer, Grace Ann Braxton, I love sharing this story. She's actually being inducted in the Virginia State Golf Hall of Fame this fall. You know, not the Golf Hall of Fame for people with intellectual disabilities. It is the State Golf Hall of Fame with Sam Snead and people like that. She's an incredible golfer, won tons of gold medals, but I believe she's 67 years old. So, and she was competing this past weekend at Fall Championships. So, an incredible organic moments that happen is David and Grace Ann are almost like the mother and fatherly figures to a lot of our younger athletes and gives them hope. Our former president used to say Special Olympics is about what's possible, and you know, you can take it all the way to getting inducted in the State Golf Hall of Fame, which is a pretty incredible thing. So I always like to talk about Grace Ann. What we do, a top question I get asked all the time is, when is the Special Olympics? And it's such a tough question to ask because Special Olympics is every single day. Every day we have a local program going on across the state. We have a fundraiser going on, things like that. So Special Olympics truly is every single day. But we do have our Summer Games, which is our flagship event at University of Richmond. About 1,500 athletes come out there and participate. That's during the summer. But also they can qualify and make it to USA Games, which we did have this year down in Orlando. So we sent a team, I believe it was 53 athletes down to Orlando, and then they can qualify to the World Games, which are going to be in Germany, in Berlin, in a couple years. So it's one of the best things about Special Olympics is that you don't have to pay for it. We try and provide all the costs. If they come down for Fall Championships, for example, we're paying for their hotel rooms. We just want them to show up and compete. So that's where a lot of our funding does go through, things like that. But really, a misnomer is that we're just sports, but we're a lot more than just sports. So partner with K through 12 schools to promote social inclusion through our Unified Champion Schools program. Special Olympics is actually the largest healthcare provider for people with intellectual disabilities in the world, and we do this through our Healthy Athletes program. And then we're trying to make a big push for fitness. I'm going to show you guys some statistics a little bit later on, but fitness is a huge thing. So not just having athletes practice a couple times a week, compete here and there, but really trying to create healthy habits, get them to go out and go walk, get them to run, get them to lift weights if they're interested in that. Just really create healthy habits on a daily basis. And then lastly, our Global Messenger program. Really cool program. So kind of the way we use our Global Messengers is we pair them up with a mentor, and we have the mentor kind of shape their story. So now they're able to eloquently tell their story to other people and hopefully inspire change and inclusion across whatever groups they get in front of. Like normally I would bring a Global Messenger here and have them share more about Special Olympics. It's a lot more powerful to hear from an athlete rather than me. But we take our Global Messengers all the way up to Congress, and we vouch for funding for UCS programs and Healthy Athletes programs. So it's pretty amazing and incredible having an athlete speak in front of Congress and vouch for funding is a lot more powerful than someone like I could do. And then, so these were kind of the stats that I was talking about. People with intellectual disabilities, and this is personal for me, as I'm sure it is with a lot of you. My uncle having one is they're 2 times as likely to be obese, 2 to 4 times as likely to be less physically active. Their life expectancy is reduced by an average of 20 years. They're five times more likely to have diabetes, and they're 2 times more likely to have something like asthma or cardiovascular disorders. So we also realize that we can't put a dent in any of these statistics with just a few practices a week. We really need to empower athletes to take control of their own health, and their families to take control of their own health too. Incredibly intimidating, for anybody to go to the doctor sometimes. People with intellectual disabilities, that's a lot of times amplified. They don't want you to be in their bubble sometimes. So we're trying to put a dent in these statistics through our Healthy Athletes program. It's pretty incredible. At our summer games in Richmond, we have 40 dental chairs set up, and we're doing teeth cleanings. We're checking for oral cancer, finding oral cancer, giving referrals, filling cavities on the spot in conjunction with VCU dental students. So it's a win for us and our athletes, but it's a win for the students as well, because they don't have a whole lot of opportunity to work with people with intellectual disabilities, which can be a highly skilled thing. So we have an eyeglass machine. We cut eyeglasses on the spot, which is pretty incredible. I do have some statistics down here. This was last time when we had the full-on Healthy Athlete screening, but new eyewear, 183 glasses provided to people with intellectual disabilities at our events. Completely free to them, no cost. We have 25 dentists that are involved. I can't see the number down here, but we did like 190 referrals, I believe, which was 100% of people that needed a referral got one, and we helped provide transportation to get them there too, which is another thing that we really believe in. Healthy hearing participants, so 100 referrals as well. For healthy hearing, there's a great story that we have one of our athletes. His name is Keenan. He was down at USA Games, and Keenan was constantly being yelled at by his coaches. I think a misnomer is that people with intellectual disabilities, you have to coddle them. You can't be as intense with them, but it's not the case for our athletes. Like, no, we're going to challenge them. They deserve to be challenged just like anybody else. So Keenan was getting yelled at by his coach constantly. So they took him to the healthy hearing. They found out his hearing aids had been like 4 years expired. They were super old. So we gave Keenan a fresh new pair of hearing aids right on the spot, and he was able to compete and actually take direction from his coaches at USA Games, completely free for the athletes. So I'll share my personal goal. We have this program right now at USA Games. We have some pop-up clinics here and there, but my goal is to bring this to fall championships, and I've been talking with Centera, and I'm pretty sure we're going to make it happen. And we're always looking for dentists, retired dentists that want to volunteer their time, retired optometrists, ophthalmologists, anybody in a skilled position that wants to volunteer their time. I always love having a conversation with them because more likely than not, they're happy to do pro bono work in their retirement. So that's our Healthy Athletes program, and this is kind of a cool stat down here too. I'll share. 73% of volunteers report that they would seek more patients with intellectual disabilities. So for us, the athletes, it's a win for them, but we're able to touch these doctors and these skilled physicians, and they see the value of this. So they're seeking out people in these communities now. Almost 3/4 of them are, which is pretty amazing. So next we have our Unified Champion Schools program. I love this program so much. We, like I said, we're in 400 schools right now. One we wrapped up back in the spring. We do about 100 of these throughout the state. It's called Little Feet Meets. And essentially we bus in K through 5 students, in this case City and Norfolk students. We bust them into ODU. And they have a big buddy and a little buddy that they're assigned with. One of them has intellectual disabilities, one of them does not. The key word being unified. So we're trying to bridge that gap and have people without intellectual disabilities realize that their peers with intellectual disabilities aren't so different. And you can find common ground through the vehicle sport, which is pretty incredible. So we had 800 students bust in. I think it took 300 ODU volunteers to put on an event over at Ballard Stadium at ODU. And it's just amazing. They go through a field day, they go through about 40 stations, and they're doing different movements to find out which sports they like. But the ultimate goal of this, we employ 2 athletes with Special Olympics Virginia full-time that are my colleagues. And Daniel, one of our athletes, talks all the time. He's a global messenger, but he talks about how, you know, he was bullied in school. Naturally, that does happen. But the worst thing for him was lunchtime, which should be a moment of solace, I think, for people in high school. But for Daniel, he hated going to lunch because he was sitting by himself. Nobody wanted to sit with him. So for me, our program, starting with the Little Feet Meets, the hope is that now, you know, they have somebody they can sit with at lunch. They're not ostracized. So that's something that's really important. And hearing Daniel share that story, it's truly heartbreaking. So that's something we're really trying to change through our Unified Champion School program. And the solution is sports as the foundation for inclusion. You can see all these here: reduce bullying, promote healthy activities, overturn the stereotypes and attitudes, eliminate hurtful language like the R word, engage young people as leaders of new positive social movements. So we've had a lot of champions just step up, people without intellectual disabilities, that this has meant a lot to them. So for them, they naturally, when they turn 18, they're taking this to college, and then they're taking it into the professional world. So it's not just for people with intellectual disabilities, it's for people without intellectual disabilities as well. And then, so this is just, it's a little bit longer video, so bear with me, but it's about Bunker Hill Elementary, which is in Northern Virginia, DC area, and their UCS program. And it's just kind of cool to hear a principal talk about what the program means to them. It can really change a paradigm shift throughout schools.
I do think there's a sense of a core.
Wipe all of those things out, but nothing can change the contents of your heart.
I do think there's a sense of a core humanity that this program speaks to.
What kind of day you gonna have today? Deep down inside, they want something positive to attach themselves to.
It just makes for a better human being.
Bunker Hill is an amazing school. Everyone is respected, safe, and I just love everything we do here. Face, pants.
And room after cook. Beautiful. Say cake.
Bunker Hill is located in the village of Brooklyn in Northeast DC. It's a very diverse community, but it is a community that cares. One thing that we do ensure at Bunker Hill is that everyone pretty much has a seat at the table, because we want to ensure that our scholars always have voice and choice. The diversity of the community also brings a sense of belonging and understanding that you are working towards a common mission, and also that you have purpose.
Good morning, Free to Be Me.
Good morning.
That's beautiful. The Free to Be Me Club is actually a group of 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students that have taken on some leadership responsibilities. To be quite frank, it started out as the Mean Girls Club because they were mean. And I said, well, you know, you all are going to come have lunch with me, and we're going to talk about this and how to respect each other's differences and get along in spite of those differences.
We believe in inclusion.
Who can tell me what inclusion is?
To include someone no matter what.
Much to my surprise, these students were willing to sacrifice their lunchtime and their recess every week to come in and talk to me. And we talked about the various things that they would like to do in the community as far as homeless shelters, sending cards to sick children, and it just flourished from that point forward. And so today I just want us to continue to practice random acts of kindness, because you never know how much even the smallest act of kindness can turn someone's day around. Good morning. As a special educator, I try to make my classroom an environment where they want to come. That's why I call my scholars superheroes, because I want them to feel like they are super students. High five. Way to work it out. Well, let's try it again.
I met Lisa probably about 12 years ago. Lisa was just a go-to person. I was like, Lisa, I have a program for you. You're going to love it. It's called Unified Champion Schools. She's like, Anthony, say less. We're going to do it. I'm like, I haven't told you this program. She goes, we're going to do it. That was the 5-minute conversation. She's like, send me the paperwork. I'll sign it. We'll start this year. And that is actually how Special Olympics, Unified Champion Schools came to Bunker Hill.
So the Unified program gives students living with intellectual disabilities, those are our athletes, and then the students that are not living with intellectual disability, the partners, they have an opportunity to learn skills, how to play together, how to share, how to win, how to lose. People understood what it means to be unified, and then starting to teach them that at a young age.
I was introduced to Bunker Hill by Lisa a few years ago. I've just been a supporter and a colleague. The fact that everybody wants to be respected, everybody wants to be included, regardless of what your station is in life, regardless of your demographic background or anything. Value every contribution. That's really what the core of this program is about.
I absolutely love Bunker Hill. Inclusiveness is important because everybody, especially as a child, should always feel like they belong. Ashton, he's a 5th grader. Unified, he gets the confidence. I think he gets the love, the support, the team feeling.
For Bunker Hill, it's just good to know that we're sending Lily someplace every day, but she's with people who care about her. And that's important for me. Making sure that they're included, making sure that we know that they're welcome to be part of this Bunker Hill family.
Young athletes, free to be me. Excellent job. One of the students came back to the school and he won a gold medal. The mother came in the room and the child said, Mommy, look what I got. And he put his gold medal He put his gold medal around his mother's neck. She cried. I cried. I'll never forget that. But this gives them hope. It gives them an arena to excel in. They find out how really good they are.
That peer-to-peer connections that we want to make sure our kids are able to be social creatures. Our kids are able to navigate the world, understand that as human beings there is a commonality. That is Unified Champion Schools.
It's more important to be kind than it is to be beautiful, than it is to be intelligent, than it is to be rich. Because a single calamity can wipe all of those things out, but nothing can change the contents of your heart.
Who's cutting onions?
Yeah.
Sorry, just watching this, it reminded me of my daughter. She was bullied. I mean, her whole way through school. And I wish that we had had something like this, because she didn't have any friends, growing up, and it wasn't until my ex-husband and I, got her involved. I was telling you about the ARC of Prince William County that she finally, started making some friends, and her first friend was a young lady with Down syndrome. But she was bullied all the time. She, would call us, and when she stayed with us, just crying, and it was just brought back memories of that. So sorry.
No, you're fine. Thank you for sharing. We hear that a lot, right? It's people with intellectual disabilities can be ostracized, unfortunately. So we're really trying to spread inclusion and start to the schools. Us being in 400 schools is great, but we still have a lot of work to do. So that's where we need teachers to be champions for us, principals to be champions, and let us get in the schools and let us just do the work. It's pretty incredible to see. We have banner schools, so we'll actually have ESPN, their staff members will come down and do a presentation for some of our banner schools, ones that have been exemplary in our Unified Champion School program, and it's pretty incredible. It's awesome for the school. They love it too. So we take that. That was just the K through 5 level. We also do this at the middle school level and then at the high school level as well. So it's whole school engagement here. One of the best moments I have of our little feed meets, we were doing one in Virginia Beach, and I had a parent come up to me, and she was like, I just want to thank you so much for helping put this on for my son. And I was like, oh, that's great. Like, what sports does your son play in our program? And she was like, oh, no, he doesn't have an intellectual disability. He just really enjoys being a part of this, and you would have never had that type of exposure to somebody a little different than him without the UCS program. So it's pretty incredible, and I think sometimes I do take it for granted. My uncle having an intellectual disability, I grew up around it. He was always my Uncle Stan. He was never my Uncle Stan with an intellectual disability. So we're just trying to share that message more and more within the school system. So that's healthy athletes, Unified Champion Schools, those two programs, very important. And then our Global Messenger program, which I didn't talk about a whole lot, but it's empowering athletes to become leaders in their community and vouch for Special Olympics and to share their story. So what do we have to look forward to in 22 with your help, hopefully? So I mentioned, we sent 53 athletes to USA Games in Orlando. We're growing our Unified Champion Schools program. We're starting a new Unified Champion Schools program. And right now we're in a bit of a rebuilding phase. We're almost there coming out of the pandemic, but we definitely need more support to get back to full capacity and where we were at. So that's where we're trying to engage new and existing partners across Virginia in our events. So for me, we started a Young Professionals Board in Richmond about 5 years ago. We started one in Northern Virginia 3 years ago. I just started one down here this year in the Hampton Roads. So if you all have any young professionals within your companies, please send them my way. Happy to get them plugged in. The board is 29 young folks within the Hampton Roads. So I would say half have experience with people with intellectual disabilities, the other half does not, which is a perfect blend of what we're trying to do. And then just a little bit more about Special Olympics from a marketing perspective. So I think we were voted the #4 most trustworthy nonprofit in the United States, which is pretty awesome. So when you're working with Special Olympics, you're aligning with a very valuable brand like an American Heart Association, like the St. Jude. 9 in 10 consumers believe Special Olympics has a positive social impact. 95% of consumers recognize Special Olympics as a brand deserving of respect, loyalty. It's among the top 10% of most trustworthy brands in the United States. So if a company does partner with Special Olympics, they're aligning with a very trustworthy brand. That they know that funding is going to a good place. I believe 85% of our fundraising goes towards programs, which is considered as exemplary and in the top 1% of nonprofits. And then this is just some more key benchmark scores, like what it means when you align your brand with Special Olympics. I'm not going to get into it too much, but overall it's a good thing. People trust Special Olympics and the work we do. And then this is just our audience, which is really cool. I didn't even talk about, we have a former law enforcement person in the room. We have an initiative called Law Enforcement Torch Run, where we raise money through law enforcement officers. If you go to any of our events, you're going to see dozens of law enforcement there, which is pretty amazing. I believe they raised $1.1 million for us this year through their torch run, where essentially they run a leg of the run in their municipality, pass it off to somebody else in a different municipality. And we did our kickoff at the Pentagon this year, which was really, really cool for me personally. I got to meet Tim Shriver, who is the chairman of Special Olympics International, and that's JFK's nephew, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, the founder's son. So it was really cool to meet him, but we also had 300 law enforcement officials up there, all coming together for the good of Special Olympics Virginia. And then we do have a large reach, 90,000 people in our email database, a lot of Facebook likes, all that good stuff. But as far as how people in this room can get involved, I say just come out and volunteer. Just see our events, you'll be hooked. You'll want to come out more, it's awesome. You'll start building relationships. Like I talked about David Sutton, the golfer that I play with now. I take him out for golf at least once a month. And whenever I see him at an event, he's this big 6'5" guy. He comes up to me, he gives me a big bear hug, lifts me up off the ground. And I saw him at fall champs and he was just over the moon. Austin, it's always so good to see you. I love when we just get to catch up and chop it up and hang out, and it is what makes it all worth it. Polar Plunge is our largest fundraiser aside from Law Enforcement Torch Run. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of Polar Plunge. For those of you that have not, this past year we had 3,000 plungers, raised about $1 million for Special Olympics Virginia. Our flagship marquee plunge takes place at the Virginia Beach oceanfront, but we have regional plunges throughout the state. So the way you get involved is essentially it's peer-to-peer fundraising. So form your page, you ask people on Facebook for money, and if you raise $100, then you get to participate in the plunge. There's other incentives involved. If you raise like $500, you get a room night at the oceanfront. You can get sweatshirts, different swag materials, things of that nature. But I've had a lot of my conversations are with employers who want to engage their employees coming out of the pandemic. A lot of them are doing this as an employee engagement opportunity, one, to do some good, but also to do something as a cohort, as a group. So if anybody wants to have that conversation, please reach out to me. Our website is also polarplunge.com, pretty easy for if you want to get involved that way, but also specialolympicsva.org is our website for Special Olympics. So I'm always happy to have a conversation too. I love talking about it, if you can't tell. So Lori, thank you, and Frank and Kellen for letting me present. I really appreciate you guys letting me be here and talk about Special Olympics. So happy to answer any questions too.
Thank you so much. That was really informative.
Good.
I knew nothing about that.